Welcome back. When you look back over the last couple of days, it's clear we are seeing an emergence of violence on the campaign trail. And there are two questions. Who is really responsible here and what needs to be done to calm things down? It was a raucous weekend on the campaign trail, especially for Donald Trump. A sucker punch thrown in North Carolina, a rally shut down in Chicago, a protester rushing the stage in Ohio.
Get him out of here. Go home to mommy.
And he's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing, like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Trump's critics are now using these comments as evidence he is inciting violence. Other presidential candidates on both sides say it proves he's too divisive to be commander-in-chief.
We are now seeing images on television we haven't seen in this country since the 1960s. Images that make us look like a third world country.
There is no place for this.
In any campaign, responsibility starts at the top, and it is not beneficial when you have a presidential candidate like Donald Trump telling his supporters, punch that guy in the face.
Democrats echoing those same comments during a CNN town hall Sunday night.
Donald Trump is responsible for what happens at his events. He is the person who has, for months now, been not just inciting violence, but applauding violence.
He is saying if you go out and beat somebody up, that's okay. I'll pay the legal fees. That is an outrage.
Clinton even called Trump bigoted. And then Sanders said this.
I hesitate to say this because I really don't like to disparage public officials, but Donald Trump is a pathological liar.
Sanders responding to Trump's accusations that the Vermont senator orchestrated the shutdown of his Chicago event.
And a lot of times they're kids and they don't know where they're coming from, and they'll have a Bernie sign. Bernie's going nowhere, you know that.
Also, the Washington Times now reports that MoveOn.org, backed by liberal billionaire George Soros, helped raise money for those Chicago protests. And they're promising more disruptions on the way.
It's incredible. We have protesters, some of whom are so mean, so loud, so vicious, they stop us from really our First Amendment rights, right? Freedom of speech, you can't talk, they're screaming. There are very few of them, but they are bad. Now, you hear about a couple of, one in particular, vicious, swinging. Well, guess what happened? Our people started swinging back.
Also, Trump confirmed on Meet the Press that his campaign is looking into paying the legal fees for John McGraw, the man who swung back at that recent campaign rally in North Carolina.
I've actually instructed my people to look into it, yes.
Meanwhile, Gallup puts President Obama's approval rating now at a 3-year high, over 50%. Why? Gallup cites the unusual status of the Republican primary race and Donald Trump's campaign rhetoric and style, which, quote, may serve to make Obama look statesmanlike in comparison. History also suggests that when an incumbent president's approval numbers are above 50%, the odds for the next president to come from the same party greatly improve. And for Republicans concerned about 4 more years of a Democrat, maybe even a socialist in the White House, Trump shows no signs of pulling back, even downplaying recent events at his rallies, calling them, quote, love fests.
The people that are supporters of Donald Trump want to see America be great again. That's what it is.
And we now want to welcome in today's guest. Joining us now, I believe we have Scottie Nell Hughes. There she is. I see her giving the love sign. Back at you, girl. She's a Trump supporter and the chief political correspondent at USA Radio Network. We also have with us Raul Mas, also sending love your way, political and economic analyst and the CEO of Gladius Consulting. Thank you both for joining us. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to start with you, Scottie. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Who's to blame here, Donald Trump or the protesters?
Oh, it's absolutely the protesters. It's amazing right now that we have a constitution that guarantees free speech, that guarantees that we can gather with others for a peaceable protest, that we can go along, the freedom of assembly. However, Friday night, what happened is those freedoms were taken away because of this idea that there might be security issues. And those things right now isn't fair. It isn't right. And so we need to make sure that we do something about that.
And apparently your dog agrees with you right there.
Or disagrees, perhaps.
Maybe disagrees. I don't know. Raul, what do you think?
Listen, as you guys know, I mean, I've not exactly been a fan of Donald Trump, but I have to agree with my colleague on this one. Listen, if you're going to go to a rally and you're going to be a jerk and you're going to try and stop somebody from exercising his First Amendment rights, then you know what? Be prepared to suffer a little bit of pain and consequences. I mean, quite frankly, I think, they doth protest too much, right? I mean, they're going in there, they're inciting, they're trying to sort of get the camera to focus in on them. They want to disrupt the speech. And now they're crying about the fact that they're getting kicked out. And in some cases getting roughed up a bit. You know what? Listen, politics is a rough business.
I don't want to say he's responsible. But Donald Trump does seem to feed off of this exchange he has, not just with the protesters, but also with his supporters when these types of incidents happen. Scottie, I do believe that there is a certain amount of this that the Trump campaign does want inside these rallies.
Well, I don't know if it's a certain amount. I mean, these are private events. These are people have to go ahead of time. That's free. It's open. You register, but you have to have a ticket to go inside. And so when Mr. Trump's sitting there and screaming from the podium, get him out of here, get him out, he's not doing it just to create this idea and this drama. He's actually giving security the permission, saying, I no longer want that person at my private event. It's a legal thing that he's saying, and people don't realize that.
But it works for him, too, on a very, fundamental level for his supporters. Don't you agree, Raul?
But it just shows the anger that we have. That's all it does. Is it showing the anger that Americans have, and that's just—it's just a great example.
Listen, I mean, if there's one thing that Donald Trump has tapped into, is the fact that quite frankly, a large segment of the American population is, pardon the expression, pissed off. Right?
True.
They're pissed off at their government. They're pissed off at political correctness, and they're tired of sort of having to keep their mouth shut. And just pretend that everything is okay in America. It's not, you know what? And everybody has a right to be heard, including Trump supporters, okay? I'm sorry. And again, as I've mentioned to you, I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump, but he's got every right to be up there. These are his events. And quite frankly, if you're going to go to an event and you're going to be disrupting it, then you know what? Be prepared to be booted out. Okay?
Well, there's a difference, though, between being booted out and being sucker punched.
I
think that's one incident. I don't blame Donald Trump for that, but I think the message he's sending is not very responsible.
I agree, but we're now seeing the video of what was going on. It's just now starting to come out. If you go and look of what that gentleman was doing, and I don't even call him a gentleman, before he was escorted out, his group of them, he was sitting there, he was flipping people off there in the audience, he was screaming at them. They were screaming at, now that doesn't justify being punched out. However, he had sat there for a good 20, 30 minutes and just raised ruckus for all these folks that could not hear Mr. Trump.
We gotta run. We'll find out, I guess, Wednesday, tomorrow night, or Wednesday morning, if this is having any effect whatsoever, because nothing seems to hurt Donald Trump.
Scottie, Nell, Hughes, Raul Mas, thank you both for joining us. Pleasure to have you. We'll have you back on again.